They called him Tiny, a name that always felt too big for him, like a hand-me-down coat 2 sizes too large. He wasn't actually tiny, not in the way people usually meant. He was just, smaller than everyone else on the basketball team. Maybe not smaller in height, but smaller in presence, smaller in the way he took up space. The bench was Tiny's home court that year. Splintered wood, the squeak of sneakers on the polished floor a constant soundtrack to his disappointment. He watched as the season unfolded, each game a painful reminder of his perceived inadequacy. The coach, a man with a voice like gravel and eyes that seemed to see right through him, rarely glanced his way. "Work harder, Tiny," he'd bark during practice, a phrase that echoed in Tiny's mind long after the gym lights flickered off. His real name was Thomas, but only his mom used it. To everyone else, he was Tiny. It was meant to be a joke, a playful jab at his lack of playing time, but it stung nonetheless. He tried to bulk up, lifting weights in his garage until his arms trembled, but the other guys were just bigger. Faster. Stronger. He loved basketball. He loved the feel of the ball in his hands, the swish of the net, the camaraderie of the team, even if he was mostly on the fringes. He dreamed of making the winning shot, of hearing the roar of the crowd, of finally proving everyone wrong. But dreams felt distant when he was stuck on the sidelines, watching his teammates play while he collected splinters. The other guys didn't understand. They went to parties after games, celebrating victories or drowning their sorrows after losses. They talked about girls and cars and things that seemed a million miles away from Tiny's world. He couldn't relate. He wasn't part of their inner circle, the ones who got all the playing time and all the attention. He was just Tiny, the guy on the bench. One particularly brutal game, where his team got completely trounced, Tiny felt a wave of despair wash over him. He wanted to quit. He wanted to throw in the towel and forget about basketball altogether. But something inside him, a tiny spark of defiance, refused to let him. He couldn't give up. Not yet. That night, Tiny couldn't sleep. The sting of the loss, the weight of his own perceived failure, pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. He tossed and turned, replaying the game in his head, each missed shot and blown opportunity magnified tenfold. He imagined the coach's disappointed face, the snickers of his teammates, the pitying glances from the crowd. Finally, he gave up on sleep. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake his parents, and tiptoed through the quiet house. He grabbed his basketball from the garage, its familiar leather surface offering a small measure of comfort. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to move, to do something to shake off the suffocating feeling of hopelessness. He ended up at the park, the only place open and lit at that hour. The basketball court was deserted, the chain-link fence casting long, skeletal shadows in the moonlight. He dribbled the ball, the rhythmic thump echoing in the stillness, a lonely counterpoint to the distant sounds of the city. He started with simple layups, his movements stiff and awkward. He missed more than he made, the ball clanging off the rim and bouncing away into the darkness. Frustration mounted, threatening to overwhelm him once again. He wanted to scream, to throw the ball as far as he could, to give up and go home. But then he remembered something his grandfather used to say, the only way to get better is to keep practicing, even when it hurts. His grandfather, a weathered old carpenter with hands as rough as bark, had taught him the value of hard work and perseverance. Tiny closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and started again. He focused on his form, his footwork, his release. He imagined the coach's voice in his head, correcting his mistakes, pushing him to do better. He practiced his dribbling, weaving through imaginary defenders, his heart pounding in his chest. He practiced his shooting, visualizing the ball arcing through the air, sinking perfectly through the net. Hours passed. The moon climbed higher in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the court. Tiny's muscles ached, his lungs burned, and his hands were raw from gripping the ball. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He was driven by something more than just a desire to play basketball. He was driven by a need to prove himself, to overcome his limitations, to show everyone that he was more than just tiny. He was Thomas, and he was a basketball player. And he wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not ever. The following weeks fell into a rhythm. School, homework, basketball practice where he mostly warmed the bench, then the secret sessions under the streetlights. While his teammates traded stories of weekend parties and late-night movies, Tiny was working. The laughter and music drifting from open windows seemed like they belonged to another world, a world he wasn't invited to. Sometimes, he'd see them driving past the park in their parents' cars, windows down, music blasting. He'd duck his head, embarrassed to be seen, a lone figure illuminated by the harsh glare of the streetlight, dribbling a basketball in the dead of night. He imagined what they were thinking, look at Tiny, still trying. Doesn't he know he'll never be good enough? The frustration gnawed at him. There were nights when he wanted to quit, to trade his worn-out sneakers for a night out with his friends, to feel the carefree joy that seemed to come so easily to everyone else. He'd sit on the cold park bench, staring up at the stars, wondering if it was all worth it. But then he'd remember the feeling of the ball in his hands, the satisfaction of making a perfect shot, the burning desire to prove himself. He'd remember his grandfather's words, his mom's unwavering belief in him, the tiny spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. And he'd get back up and start practicing again. He started setting goals for himself. 10 free throws in a row. 50 jump shots before he left the court. Dribbling drills until his fingers were numb. He pushed himself harder than he ever had before, driven by a fierce determination to improve. He also started watching videos of professional basketball players, studying their techniques, analyzing their moves. He tried to emulate their skills, practicing their crossovers, their fadeaway jumpers, their no-look passes. He knew he couldn't become them overnight, but he believed that with enough hard work, he could become a better player. Slowly but surely, he started to see progress. His shots became more consistent, his dribbling more fluid, his movements more confident. He was still smaller than the other guys, but he was getting stronger, faster, and more skilled. He was still tiny, but he was also becoming something more. He was becoming a threat. A player to be reckoned with. A basketball player who wouldn't give up, no matter what. He was earning his place, one late-night practice session at a time. One particularly cold night, Coach Miller spotted Tiny. He was driving home late, the defroster struggling to keep the windshield clear, when he saw a figure moving on the basketball court at Elm Street Park. At first, he thought it was just some kids messing around, but as he got closer, he recognized the familiar silhouette. It was Tiny, his breath misting in the frigid air, tirelessly running drills under the flickering streetlight. Coach Miller pulled over, the gravel crunching under his tires. He watched Tiny for a few minutes, impressed by his dedication and work ethic. The kid was putting in the effort, even when no one was watching. Even when everyone else was out having fun. He got out of his car, the cold biting at his exposed skin. "Tiny," he called out, his voice raspy from years of yelling on the court. Tiny stopped dribbling, startled. He turned to face the coach, his face flushed with exertion and a hint of apprehension. "Coach. What are you doing out here?" Coach Miller asked, trying to keep the surprise out of his voice. Tiny shrugged, kicking at a loose pebble on the court. "Just practicing." "I can see that," Coach Miller said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "But why? It's almost midnight. Shouldn't you be home sleeping?" "I want to get better," Tiny said, his voice barely a whisper. "I want to play." Coach Miller nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. He knew Tiny had potential, but he also knew the kid lacked confidence. He'd been hesitant to give him much playing time, afraid he'd crumble under pressure. But seeing him out here, working this hard, changed his perspective. "You got heart, Tiny," Coach Miller said, his voice softening. "I'll give you that. But heart alone isn't enough. You need guidance. You need someone to show you the way." He paused, considering his next words carefully. Tell you what, Tiny. Starting tomorrow, you come to the gym an hour early. I'll work with you myself. We'll focus on your weaknesses, build on your strengths. But you gotta promise me something. What's that, coach? Tiny asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. You gotta promise me you'll keep working hard, even when it gets tough. You gotta promise me you won't give up on yourself, no matter what. Tiny nodded, his face breaking into a wide grin. I promise, coach. I won't let you down. That night, as Tiny finally headed home, he felt a surge of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. The streetlights seemed a little brighter, the air a little warmer. He wasn't alone anymore. He had a coach who believed in him. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Tiny arrived at the gym an hour before practice, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Coach Miller was already there, waiting for him, a basketball tucked under his arm. All right, Tiny, Coach Miller said, clapping his hands together. Let's see what you got. They started with the basics, dribbling, passing, shooting. Coach Miller watched Tiny closely, pointing out his flaws and offering suggestions for improvement. He focused on Tiny's footwork, teaching him how to move more efficiently on the court. He worked on his shooting form, helping him to develop a more consistent release. He drilled him on his passing, emphasizing accuracy and speed. Keep your eye on the target, Tiny, Coach Miller would say. Follow through with your shot. Use your whole body when you pass. Tiny listened intently, absorbing every word, every instruction. He practiced each drill with unwavering focus, determined to master the skills Coach Miller was teaching him. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to put in the work. Coach Miller also focused on Tiny's mental game. He taught him how to stay positive, even when he made mistakes. He encouraged him to believe in himself, to trust his instincts, to never give up. You gotta have confidence, Tiny, Coach Miller would say. You gotta believe you can make the shot. You gotta believe you can win the game. Tiny started to see a difference. His skills improved, his confidence grew, and his passion for the game reignited. He was no longer just Tiny, the guy on the bench. He was becoming a basketball player, a player with potential, a player with a future. Coach Miller pushed him hard, but he also knew when to offer encouragement. He recognized Tiny's strengths and weaknesses, and he tailored his coaching to suit his individual needs. He was more than just a coach, he was a mentor, a teacher, a friend. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling practice session, Coach Miller put his hand on Tiny's shoulder. You're doing great, Tiny, he said, his voice filled with pride. Keep working hard, and you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Tiny smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. He knew he still had a long way to go, but he also knew he was on the right track. He had a coach who believed in him, and that Coach Miller taught him to use his legs more, to create a smoother, more fluid motion. They spent hours practicing, Tiny shooting hundreds of jump shots each day, until his arm ached and his legs burned. Slowly but surely, his shot improved. He started hitting more consistently, his confidence growing with each successful basket. Another area they focused on was his ball handling skills. Tiny wasn't the quickest player, but Coach Miller believed he could become a better ball handler. They worked on dribbling drills, teaching Tiny how to protect the ball, how to change direction quickly, how to use his body to shield the ball from defenders. Tiny practiced relentlessly, weaving through cones, dribbling with both hands, until he could handle the ball with ease and confidence. Coach Miller also helped Tiny develop his passing skills. He taught him how to make accurate passes, how to anticipate his teammates' movements, how to use different types of passes to get the ball to the right player at the right time. They practiced passing drills, Tiny throwing hundreds of passes each day, until he could hit his teammates in stride, even in traffic. As Tiny's skills improved, his confidence soared. He started to believe in himself, to believe that he could be a valuable member of the team. He was no longer just Tiny, the guy on the bench. He was Thomas, a skilled basketball player with the potential to make a difference. He started to carry himself differently, walking with his head held high, his shoulders squared. He started to speak up more in practice, offering suggestions, sharing his ideas. He started to interact more with his teammates, building relationships, earning their respect. One day, during a scrimmage, Tiny made a spectacular play. He stole the ball from one of the team's best players, dribbled past two defenders, and then made a no-look pass to a teammate who was wide open under the basket. The teammate caught the pass and made an easy layup. The entire team erupted in cheers. Even Coach Miller couldn't help but smile. "Nice play, Tiny," one of his teammates shouted. "Way to go, Thomas," another teammate added. Tiny beamed with pride. He had finally earned their respect. He had finally proven himself. He was no longer just Tiny. He was Thomas, a valuable member of the team, a player who could make a difference. He was ready for the upcoming season. He was ready to show everyone what he was capable of. He was ready to win. Tryouts the following year felt different. Thomas walked into the gym with a newfound confidence, a quiet assurance that he belonged there. The whispers still followed him, "There's Tiny," some of the older players snickered, but this time, the words didn't sting as much. He knew what he was capable of. He'd put in the work. Coach Miller gave him a knowing nod, a silent acknowledgement of the transformation Thomas had undergone. The tryout drills were familiar, but Thomas approached them with a different energy. He dribbled with precision, his ball handling skills noticeably improved. He passed with accuracy, hitting his teammates in stride. And when it came time to shoot, he sank jump shot after jump shot, his form smooth and consistent. The other players took notice. The snickers faded, replaced by murmurs of surprise and admiration. Even the older players who had dismissed him the previous year were impressed by Thomas's newfound abilities. He wasn't the same Tiny they remembered. During a scrimmage, Thomas showcased his all-around game. He played tough defense, harassing his opponents and forcing turnovers. He ran the floor with energy and enthusiasm, always looking for an opportunity to score or make a play for his teammates. He even surprised everyone with a few acrobatic layups, displaying a level of athleticism they hadn't seen before. After the tryout, Thomas waited anxiously for the team roster to be posted. He stood with the other players, his heart pounding in his chest, as Coach Miller tacked the list to the bulletin board. He scanned the names, his eyes searching for his own. And then he saw it. Thomas Miller. A wave of relief washed over him, followed by an overwhelming sense of pride. He had made the team. He had proven himself. He was no longer just a benchwarmer, a footnote in the team's history. He was a valued member of the team, a player with the potential to make a difference. Coach Miller approached him, a smile on his face. "Congratulations, Thomas," he said, extending his hand. "You earned it." Thomas shook his hand firmly, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Coach," he said. "I won't let you down." As he walked out of the gym that day, Thomas felt like a different person. He had overcome his self-doubt, he had silenced his critics, and he had achieved his dream. He was a basketball player, a member of the team, and he was ready to contribute to their success. The season couldn't start soon enough. The season started with a mix of excitement and nerves. Thomas found himself on the bench once again, but this time, it felt different. He knew he had earned his place on the team, and he trusted that his opportunity would come. He watched the game intently, studying the opposing team, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. That opportunity came sooner than he expected. In their third game of the season, against their rivals, the Northwood Eagles, the team was struggling. The Eagles were a tough, physical team, and the starting players were having trouble scoring. The Eagles were up by 10 points with only 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Coach Miller looked down the bench, his eyes scanning the faces of his players. He needed a spark, someone to change the momentum of the game. "Thomas," he called out. Get in there. Thomas's heart leaped into his throat. This was it. His chance to prove himself. He quickly stripped off his warm-up jersey and ran onto the court, replacing one of the starting guards. The crowd erupted in cheers and jeers. Some were excited to see what Thomas could do, while others were skeptical, remembering his previous season on the bench. Thomas ignored the noise and focused on the game. The first few minutes were a blur. Thomas played tough defense, harassing the Eagles' point guard and forcing a turnover. He ran the floor with energy, looking for an open shot. But the Eagles were playing tough, and opportunities were hard to come by. With 2 minutes left in the third quarter, the team was still down by 10 points. The Eagles had the ball, and their star player, a towering forward named Jake, was driving to the basket. Thomas found himself guarding Jake, a daunting task given their size difference. Jake lowered his shoulder and charged towards the basket, trying to overpower Thomas. But Thomas stood his ground, refusing to be intimidated. He stayed low, keeping his eye on the ball, waiting for his opportunity. As Jake went up for a layup, Thomas leaped into the air, extending his arm and blocking the shot. The ball sailed out of bounds, giving the team possession. The crowd went wild. Thomas had made a crucial play, shifting the momentum of the game. His teammates high-fived him, their faces filled with excitement. On the next possession, Thomas received the ball on the wing. He dribbled towards the basket, faking a drive before pulling up for a jump shot. The shot was clean, arcing through the air before swishing through the net. The crowd erupted again. Thomas had scored his first points of the season, and they couldn't have come at a better time. Over the next few minutes, Thomas continued to make plays, scoring points, grabbing rebounds, and playing tough defense. He helped his team close the gap, and by the end of the third quarter, they were only down by 2 points. Thomas had proven himself. He had shown everyone that he was capable of making a difference. He was no longer just Tiny, the guy on the bench. He was Thomas, a valuable member of the team, a player who could be counted on in crucial situations. He had earned their respect, and he was just getting started. That game against the Northwood Eagles was a turning point for Thomas. He had proven to himself, to his teammates, and to his coach that he was a valuable player. From that moment on, he became an integral part of the team, contributing both on and off the court. Coach Miller started giving him more playing time, trusting him in crucial situations. Thomas never disappointed. He played with energy, passion, and a relentless determination to win. He was a spark plug off the bench, always ready to provide a boost when the team needed it most. His teammates also started to rely on him more. They knew they could count on him to make the right play, to hit the open shot, to play tough defense. He became a leader on the court, encouraging his teammates, offering suggestions, and always putting the team first. But Thomas's contributions extended beyond the basketball court. He also became a valuable member of the team off the court. He was always positive and supportive, lifting his teammates' spirits, and creating a positive atmosphere. He organized team dinners, study groups, and other activities to help build team camaraderie. He also became a mentor to some of the younger players on the team, sharing his experiences, offering advice, and helping them to develop their skills. He remembered what it was like to be the underdog, the guy on the bench, and he wanted to help the younger players avoid the same struggles he had faced. Thomas's transformation inspired the entire team. They saw his dedication, his hard work, and his unwavering belief in himself, and they were motivated to follow his example. The team became more cohesive, more determined, and more successful. They started winning more games, climbing up the standings, and earning the respect of their opponents. They were no longer just a team, they were a family, bound together by their shared love of basketball and their unwavering commitment to each other. One evening, after a particularly tough practice, Coach Miller gathered the team together. "I want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've come a long way this season, and I'm proud of each and every one of you." He paused, looking directly at Thomas. And Thomas, he added, I want to thank you in particular. You've been an inspiration to this team. You've shown us what can be accomplished with hard work, determination, and a belief in yourself. You're a true leader, both on and off the court. The team erupted in applause, their faces filled with gratitude and admiration. Thomas blushed, his heart swelling with pride. He had come a long way from the lonely nights practicing under the streetlights. He had found his place on the team, and he was making a difference. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. He was ready to lead his team to victory. The rest of the season was a roller coaster. The team continued to improve, winning more games and climbing up the rankings. But they also faced tough opponents and unexpected obstacles that tested their resolve. There was the game against the undefeated Capitol High, where they were down by 15 points in the fourth quarter but managed to pull off a miraculous comeback, winning by 1 point in the final seconds. Thomas made a crucial steal and assist in the final minute, showcasing his clutch performance abilities. Then there was the injury to their star point guard, forcing Thomas to step up and take on more responsibility as a ball handler and playmaker. He thrived under the pressure, leading the team with poise and confidence. They faced a losing streak mid-season, where the team's morale plummeted, and doubts began to creep in. Coach Miller and Thomas worked tirelessly to lift the team's spirits, reminding them of their goals and encouraging them to believe in themselves. They refocused on the fundamentals, worked on their weaknesses, and rediscovered their passion for the game. There was also the controversy surrounding a questionable call by a referee in a crucial game that cost them a win. The team felt cheated and frustrated, but they refused to let it derail their season. They channeled their anger and disappointment into fuel, using it to motivate themselves to work even harder. Through it all, Thomas remained a constant source of strength and inspiration. He led by example, always giving his best effort, always encouraging his teammates, and always believing in their ability to overcome any obstacle. As the playoffs approached, the tension mounted. The team knew they had the potential to go all the way, but they also knew that they would face tough competition. Every game was a battle, every possession a struggle. They faced a tough opponent in the first round of the playoffs, a team known for their aggressive defense and physical play. The game was close and intense, with both teams trading blows back and forth. In the final seconds, with the score tied, Thomas found himself with the ball in his hands. He drove to the basket, drawing a foul, and then calmly sank both free throws to secure the win. The team celebrated wildly, their dreams of a championship still alive. But they knew that the road ahead would only get tougher. They had to stay focused, stay determined, and stay united if they wanted to achieve their ultimate goal. The championship was within reach, but they had to earn it. Every game would be a test of their skill, their heart, and their will. The suspense was palpable, the anticipation building with each passing game. Would they be able to overcome the challenges ahead and reach the championship game? Only time would tell. The championship game arrived with an electric atmosphere. The gym was packed, the stands overflowing with cheering fans, their faces painted with school colors. The air crackled with anticipation. This was it, the culmination of all their hard work, all their sacrifices, all their dreams. Their opponent was the same Northwood Eagles team they had faced earlier in the season, the team against whom Thomas had first proven himself. But this time, the stakes were much higher. This time, it was for the championship. The game was a back-and-forth battle from the opening tip-off. Both teams played with intensity and determination, leaving everything on the court. The lead changed hands multiple times, neither team able to gain a significant advantage. Thomas started the game on the bench, but he was ready to come in and make a difference when his time came. He watched the game intently, studying the Eagles' defense, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. Midway through the second quarter, with the team struggling to score, Coach Miller called Thomas's name. "Thomas, get in there. We need a spark." Thomas leaped off the bench, his heart pounding in his chest. He ran onto the court, determined to make an impact. He immediately made his presence felt, playing tough defense, harassing the Eagles' point guard, and forcing a turnover. He then scored a quick basket, driving to the basket and finishing with an acrobatic layup. The crowd roared with approval. Thomas had ignited the team, giving them a much-needed boost. The game remained close throughout the third quarter, with both teams trading baskets. Thomas continued to make plays, scoring points, grabbing rebounds, and playing tough defense. He was a force to be reckoned with, a player who refused to be denied. In the fourth quarter, the tension reached fever pitch. The score was tied with just minutes remaining. Every possession was critical, every shot a potential game-changer. With 1 minute left, the Eagles took a 2-point lead. The team needed a basket, and they needed it now. Thomas received the ball on the wing, with the Eagles' best defender guarding him closely. He dribbled towards the basket, faking a drive before pulling up for a jump shot. The shot was contested, but Thomas released the ball with confidence, his eyes locked on the basket. The ball arced through the air, seemingly in slow motion, before swishing through the net. The crowd erupted, their cheers deafening. Thomas had tied the game with a clutch jump shot. The Eagles called a timeout, trying to regroup and strategize. But the momentum had shifted, and the team was determined to win. On the Eagles' next possession, Thomas stole the ball, dribbled down the court, and passed to a teammate who was wide open under the basket. The teammate caught the pass and made an easy layup, giving the team a 2-point lead with just seconds remaining. The Eagles desperately tried to score, but the team's defense held strong, preventing them from getting a good shot. As the final buzzer sounded, the crowd erupted in a frenzy of celebration. The team had won the championship. They had achieved their ultimate goal, and they had done it together. Thomas was mobbed by his teammates, their faces filled with joy and gratitude. He had led them to victory, and they would never forget it. Amidst the chaotic celebration, with confetti raining down and his teammates hoisting him on their shoulders, Thomas could barely hear the announcement over the loudspeakers. But then he saw Coach Miller approaching him, a wide smile on his face, pointing towards the center of the court. "They're about to announce the MVP, Thomas." Coach Miller shouted over the din, "I think you've got a pretty good shot." Thomas blushed, his heart swelling with pride. He had played well, but he knew that many of his teammates had also made significant contributions to the team's success. He didn't expect to be chosen as the MVP. The announcer stepped up to the microphone, his voice booming through the gym. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to announce the most valuable player of the championship game." He paused for dramatic effect, building the suspense. "This player has shown incredible skill, determination, and leadership throughout the season, leading his team to victory time and time again." Thomas held his breath, his eyes fixed on the announcer. "And the MVP is Thomas Miller." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers shaking the very foundations of the gym. Thomas's teammates cheered even louder, chanting his name and celebrating his achievement. Thomas was stunned. He couldn't believe it. He had gone from being tiny, the guy on the bench, to being the MVP of the championship game. It was a dream come true. He walked to center court, his legs feeling like jelly. He accepted the MVP trophy, his hands trembling with emotion. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is an incredible honor. I couldn't have done it without my teammates, my coach, and my family. Thank you for believing in me." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to dedicate this award to all the underdogs out there, all the people who have been told they're not good enough, all the people who have been benched and overlooked. Don't give up on your dreams. Keep working hard, keep believing in yourself, and anything is possible." The crowd erupted again, their cheers even louder than before. Thomas had inspired them with his words, reminding them that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and a belief in yourself. As he walked off the court, clutching the MVP trophy, Thomas felt like he was walking on air. He had achieved his dream, and he had done it in style. He was no longer just tiny. He was Thomas Miller, the MVP, the champion, the inspiration. He had proven everyone wrong, and he was just getting started. The future was bright, and he was ready to embrace it. He knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was confident that he could overcome them, just as he had overcome the challenges of the past. He was ready to lead, to inspire, and to achieve even greater things. He was ready to make a difference in the world. He was ready to be the best version of himself. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the MVP. The local newspaper ran the headline the next day, "From Benchwarmer to MVP, Tiny No More." The article detailed Thomas's incredible journey, highlighting his struggles, his dedication, and his ultimate triumph. It told the story of a boy who had been underestimated, overlooked, and even ridiculed, but who had never given up on his dream. The article quoted Coach Miller, who praised Thomas's work ethic, his leadership, and his unwavering belief in himself. "Thomas is an inspiration to us all," Coach Miller said. "He's shown us that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and a little bit of heart." The article also featured interviews with Thomas's teammates, who spoke of his positive influence on the team, both on and off the court. "Thomas is the heart and soul of this team," one teammate said. "He always puts the team first, and he always finds a way to lift us up, even when we're down." Thomas's story resonated with people throughout the community. He became a local hero, a symbol of hope and inspiration. He received countless letters, emails, and phone calls from people who had been touched by his story. He visited local schools, sharing his message of perseverance and encouraging young people to pursue their dreams. He became a role model for kids who had been bullied, who had been told they weren't good enough, who had been benched and overlooked. He showed them that they could overcome any obstacle, that they could achieve anything they set their minds to. Even his old teammates, the ones who had teased him and dismissed him, reached out to congratulate him and apologize for their past behavior. They had finally recognized his worth, and they were proud of what he had accomplished. Thomas's transformation was complete. He was no longer just Tiny, the guy on the bench. He was Thomas Miller, the MVP, the champion, the inspiration, the local hero. He had proven everyone wrong, and he had done it with grace, humility, and a genuine desire to make a difference in the world. He knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was confident that he could overcome them, just as he had overcome the challenges of the past. He was ready to lead, to inspire, and to achieve even greater things. He was ready to make a lasting impact on the world. He was ready to be the best version of himself. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the MVP, the champion, the hero, the inspiration, the role model, the leader. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the boy who had once been called Tiny, but who had grown into something much, much bigger. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the legend. More than the newspaper headlines or the MVP trophy, what truly mattered to Thomas was the impact his victory had on others. He saw it in the eyes of the young children he spoke to at local schools, their faces filled with hope and inspiration. He heard it in the voices of the people who called to congratulate him, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. He felt it in the warm embrace of his mother, her eyes filled with tears of joy and pride. His victory was more than just a basketball game, it was a testament to the power of perseverance, hard work, and believing in oneself. It was a reminder that even the smallest person, even the person who has been told they're not good enough, can achieve great things with dedication and determination. He thought back to those lonely nights practicing under the streetlights, the frustration, the self-doubt, the temptation to give up. He remembered his grandfather's words, his mother's unwavering support, Coach Miller's guidance and belief in him. He realized that his journey had been a team effort, a collaborative effort fueled by love, encouragement, and a shared belief in the power of human potential. He also realized that his victory was not just about him, it was about everyone who had ever felt like an underdog, everyone who had ever been told they couldn't do something, everyone who had ever dared to dream big. He had become a symbol of hope for those people, a living example of what is possible with hard work and a belief in oneself. He understood that his responsibility now was to continue to inspire others, to use his platform to make a positive impact on the world. He would continue to visit schools, sharing his story and encouraging young people to pursue their dreams. He would continue to mentor younger players, helping them to develop their skills and build their confidence. He would continue to give back to his community, supporting causes that were important to him. He knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but he was ready to face it with courage, determination, and an unwavering belief in himself. He had learned that the greatest victories are not just about winning games, they're about inspiring others, making a difference, and leaving the world a better place than you found it. He was ready to be that kind of champion, that kind of leader, that kind of person. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the MVP, the champion, the hero, the inspiration, the role model, the leader, the legend. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the boy who had once been called tiny, but who had grown into something much, much bigger. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the person who had proven that anything is possible with perseverance, hard work, and a belief in oneself. He was ready to be Thomas Miller, the embodiment of the American dream. He was ready. Years later, Thomas would often find himself back at Elm Street Park, the same park where he had spent countless hours practicing under the streetlights. He'd sit on the same cold, metal bench, watching young kids playing basketball, their faces filled with the same dreams and aspirations he had once had. He'd think back to his journey, the struggles, the sacrifices, the triumphs. He'd remember the feeling of frustration and self-doubt, the temptation to give up, the loneliness of practicing while others partied. He'd also remember the feeling of the ball in his hands, the satisfaction of making a perfect shot, the camaraderie of his teammates, the joy of winning. He'd think about the people who had supported him along the way, his grandfather, his mother, Coach Miller, his teammates. He was grateful for their unwavering belief in him, their encouragement, their guidance. He knew that he couldn't have done it without them. He'd also think about the people who had doubted him, who had underestimated him, who had tried to hold him back. He realized that they had also played a role in his success, pushing him to prove them wrong, fueling his determination to achieve his dreams. He'd smile, knowing that he had come a long way from the boy who had been called tiny. He had overcome his limitations, he had silenced his critics, and he had achieved his goals. He had become a champion, an inspiration, a role model. He knew that the future would hold new challenges, new obstacles, new opportunities. He was ready to face them with courage, confidence, and an unwavering belief in himself. He had learned that anything is possible with hard work, determination, and a little bit of heart. He looked forward to the future with excitement and anticipation. He wanted to continue to inspire others, to make a positive impact on the world. He wanted to continue to grow, to learn, to evolve. He wanted to continue to be the best version of himself. He stood up from the bench, grabbed his basketball, and walked onto the court. He started dribbling, the rhythmic thump of the ball echoing in the stillness of the park. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. He was Thomas Miller, and he was ready for anything. He had a story to tell, a message to share, and a world to inspire. He was ready to be the best version of himself, to make a difference, to leave his mark on the world. He was ready. He was Thomas. He was no longer tiny. He was ready. He bounced the ball once more, and the sound faded into the night.